It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. My lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold.
It's your lucky day today. Good morning, everybody. Today is September 11th, and I want to welcome you to episode 40 of Coffee and Cloud Native. Oh, hey, do you remember the other day when I said that we needed like CN gang signs? So that would be CN. But doing CN, this is sign language, by the way, it's not a gang sign. But CN is kind of awkward, so we could do like CN2, right? There you go. So if you see me at KubeCon, just be like, yeah, there we go. So, anyway, my name is Adrian Goins. Every night, I and my army of bots scour the internet for news and content related to Kubernetes and Cloud Native, and every day you'll find me here to share the bits that I find interesting. It's a curated list of content. I go through around 200 submissions every night, except on Mondays or holidays when there's like 40. But anyway, I go through a bunch of stuff, and I pick a handful of them for the next day's show. These are the tools and the products and the things that I would use or that I'm excited about, and I'm excited to share them with you. If you are watching now or in the future, please click the thumbs up button on the video so that YouTube shares it with other people. Subscribe to the channel. You'll get notifications if you click the little bell thing. In fact, I think I have a thing that tells you exactly how to do that. So that'll pop up. There it is, right there. There you go. And yeah, so join us. Now today is special. Today is the second weekly giveaway Friday where I will be giving away a course on Kubernetes mastery. In fact, you know what? I'll talk about that in a second. If you want to win, though, you have to join the YouTube chat. So I'm going to go over there and I'm going to take a look at how many people we have hanging out with us. But wait, watch this. No, wait, I'm not going to do it yet. Hold on. Who do we got in the chat? We have lots of people today. Oh my gosh, my wife is here. Hello, wife. Wojtek, Cindy, Stephen K. Stephen K won last week. It's nice to see you again, brother. Mel, Marcel, Cindy. Good morning, Cindy. Thank you for joining us today. Justin, Peter. Wow, so many people. Sajad, hey, good afternoon. And this is the part where I'm scrolling through the chat where I forget who I've already said hi to because there's so many names. Wojtek says, keeping fingers crossed for Nightbot today. You and me both. So many people. Good morning, Trix. Trix says, I just hope that Nightbot works. He doesn't really care if he wins. He just wants it to go smoothly. Hey, wife, how's Nightbot looking? Uh-oh. Wife says Nightbot not working. Okay, hang on a second. It's a really simple thing. It's a bot. It joins a channel. And okay, I see Nightbot chat. You should just refresh. Yeah, I see it. Okay, Nightbot's fine. Nightbot's fine. I got this, Lisa. Wife is in the other room on the other side of the wall. Okay. I know none of you know what I'm looking at, but this is a big deal. The reason that we use Nightbot, so I'm going to tell you, you know what, let's just jump into that. Boom. This is what we're giving away. That doesn't make any sense. This is what we're giving away today. This is the course from Udemy on Kubernetes Mastery. This is from Brett Fisher. He has one of the top-rated courses on Kubernetes on Udemy, and this is what I'm giving away. Now, here are the rules. Wait for it. Wow. I'm going to explain the rules. Trix, this first part is for you. I'm going to explain the rules, but I'll keep this news crawler up so that you can see them if anybody joins later. Here's the deal. If we hit 50 people watching the stream, and this is in increments of 50, so if we hit 100, I'll do 2 giveaways. But if we get 50 people watching the stream, and it doesn't have to stay there, it just has to touch it, then I will have Nightbot randomly select a person from the chat who has said that word that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. Today's lucky word is beagle. B-E-A-G-L-E. You just have to type it. You just have to type it once. Don't type it 1,000 times unless you're one of those people. Just type it once, and then you'll be entered to win. And Nightbot will select somebody. Now, the fallback plan is if Nightbot doesn't, I will roll a random number in a random number generator on my phone, and I will count back the number of lines in the chat to pick somebody else. But it looks like today, since I see the chat just, oh my god, beagle, 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 beagle. Yep, and I see the list of names and the users that people are being entered. Okay, super. So, how many people do we actually have here right now so far? We have 29. So we need a few more people, and then we'll do it. Cool. Let's talk about the rest of the stuff that you're actually here to talk about, which is all of this crazy Kubernetes stuff. Yesterday, we had a question from, it's actually from a couple of people. One was from Stephen K, and he tweeted about it last night, where he asked me about the tools that I've reviewed on previous shows for doing multi-tenant stuff in Kubernetes namespaces. And then I also saw a message from Michael come across. I don't know if he was just asking Stephen's question again so I would see it. But this came out of yesterday. And, oh, well, first of all, I should probably log into this if I'm going to actually show it to you. The first tool is dear to my heart. This is Rancher. Rancher contains support for single cluster multi-tenancy via a thing called a project. If you see up here, this is my DigitalOcean cluster, and then you see these three things. When you install Rancher, you get two projects, and a project is a collection of namespaces. You get the default project and you get the system project, but you can create other namespaces and you can create other projects. Kubernetes uses the namespace as the boundary for role-based access control, and if you have lots of namespaces, that's a pain to manage manually. So Rancher collects namespaces into a project, you apply RBAC to the project, and it propagates out to all of the namespaces. People who have access to a project will only see the resources for their project, but their workloads can see other workloads. So if you want network level isolation, you also need to implement network policy, eBPF, Cilium, something like that to make sure that the workloads running in a namespace can only see the things that they're permitted to see. So that's tool number one. Tool number two is actually who we had on the show yesterday, and this is Loft. Loft actually has two things. This one creates virtual clusters within a namespace, and it's pretty neat. We had them on in, I'm not going to go through all the details of them today, because if you want to see more about Loft, look back to episode 16. Remember, this is episode 40. And if you go to the website, which is scrolling across the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to find the previous ones. So Loft, episode 16. In episode 19, we had Capsule. Capsule does a similar thing where they use namespaces to partition stuff, but then they have an idea of namespace aggregation into a group thing called a tenant, which is similar to a Rancher project. So you can look for this in episode 19. Then there's the hierarchical namespace controller, which we had in episode 20. This is actually part of the Kubernetes special interest groups. It looks pretty cool. Basically, you allow people to create namespaces under namespaces, and you can let them do self-service work. So hierarchical namespace controller, episode 20. The fourth one has never been covered before, so I thought I'd spend a little bit of time just talking about it today. And this is called Kiosk. This is also from Loft, which is actually confusing, because why do you have two things that look like they kind of do the same stuff? But they don't. Kiosk isolates users to namespaces. It gives them the ability to create and destroy namespaces, and then it provides a quota and a management layer on top of namespaces. So you can designate, all users in this group can create whatever they want, but only up to certain limits. This is also similar to how Rancher projects work. And then you just let them do whatever they want. You still, from what I can tell, need network policy or something related to workload isolation to protect workloads from seeing other workloads. And this does not include any utility for user management. You would already have your Kubernetes cluster pointed to something else to bring in external users and groups, and then you would use those users and groups for the RBAC stuff. Rancher, by comparison, does have an entire global level user management function where you can integrate it with Active Directory or external resources, or you can even just create local users and groups that are then globally applied to all of the downstream clusters. So there are your answers. Rancher projects, Loft clusters, Kubernetes clusters inside of namespaces. So this looks like this includes the kiosk functionality. Capsule, hierarchical namespace controller, and kiosk. I hope that answers all your questions. If not, I hope it gives you new questions, because that's always fun too. How are we doing on people watching? We're up to 35. We need 15 more, ladies and gentlemen. Make a YouTube account for your mom, for your dog, for your sister and your brother. Make 10 YouTube fake accounts for yourself. Just get them to come and watch the show. There are actually a number of people who are watching the show and in the chat today who are from my wife's coloring community, from her channel, that have no idea what I'm talking about. But I love to see them here supporting us. So thank you all. Next, kube-vip. kube-vip released 0.1.8. This includes BGP support and integration with the Packet API. It says so right there. We first covered this in episode 13, but I've been watching it since then, and it's been getting a lot of traction. There's a lot of people testing it. There are very large clusters using it. kube-vip is a service load balancer for Kubernetes, but what makes it unique is you can also use it as a control plane load balancer directly on your nodes. If you've built an HA Kubernetes cluster, you know that you can talk to any of the masters in the cluster, and a lot of times you have to put a load balancer in front, so you've just got an endpoint that does all of the failover and all that other stuff. Well, this does it for you using the same principles that we get for service load balancer with a single IP announced and moving around and all that other stuff. You don't have to use keep alive D, you don't have to use any of that, it just does it for you. It now includes BGP support, and the Packet API support is related to BGP as well, because Packet's preferred CNI is Calico, which is all BGP. There's some other bug fixes related to leader election. I reached out to Dan and I said, hey, what about K3S? And he said, totally, K3S works, and it will actually be a documentation feature that will be released with 0.1.9. But he sent me docs on how to get it to work. I haven't tested it yet. If you want to test this out on K3S, just hit me up, and I'm happy to share with you the information. In fact, I think there's even an issue that he created for it now that probably has the docs in it. Hey, look at that. K3S installation steps. Hey, so you don't have to reach out to me at all. Wonderful. Just go here, look at the issue, there's the docs, and this will be an official documented feature in 0.1.9. We are working on testing the he is working on testing the RKE functionality with me waving a little flag saying, yay! Because that's what I do, I have a little flag. So RKE is really important, and I want to see it supported for that as well, and he said, yeah, sure, no problem. Skipper. Skipper's been popping up a lot lately. Everything from Zalando pops up a lot because they do really nifty stuff. This, though, so when I see new releases come out, I don't always include them because sometimes the thing that they're, it's like, oh, bug fixes. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. So if you already use it, you can figure it out. But when they have something that's neat and nifty, I like to bring them in so that I can share that with you. This has a swanky new feature. Remember, we're gonna use fancy words on the show. Swanky new fade-in feature for backends. The idea is to allow backends to warm up. So think like if you have a Java application that needs to prime itself with all the JIT stuff that Java does, you can have new backends be slowly ramped up to the maximum number of connections. This can be done either time-based or, I think I have another window out here that'll show you. It can be time-based, or you can apply a floating point value and it will do something like that. So it'll do a curved, I don't know if it's exponential, I don't know what the actual math is on this, but it'll do a fade in either really fast and then fading off, or really slow and fading up according to the floating point value that you provide. My favorite part about this feature is somebody saying, I'm not sure if it's useful. The ease can be less than 1, but that like ramps up really fast and then cruises across. You can't see my mouse. And somebody's like, yeah, I don't really know that's useful either, but what the heck? Let's just throw it in. If your backends are so awesome that you want them to get 95% of the traffic immediately and the remaining 5% over the next period of time, then Skipper supports that for you as well. Hey, Robert, good afternoon from sunny South Africa. Very nice. We have lots of stuff. Okay, Cindy, could you recommend a place where I can read up to understand this stuff more fully? Cindy is from my wife's community. Everybody who's in the chat, say hi to Cindy. And those of you who work with Kubernetes, why don't you just post in the chat your favorite place for an introduction or even just an overview of what Kubernetes is for a non-technical person. Think, if you had to explain Kubernetes to a family member who just thinks that what you do is wizardry, where would you send them to get an introduction? Post that in the chat. Cindy, let us know which one works for you. Oh my gosh, we're at 48. We're at 48. Exciting. Okay. Remember, oh yeah, you see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen there. All you gotta do is type the word Beagle, and you will be entered to win. And what are you being entered to win? You are being entered to win this Kubernetes Mastery from Brett Fisher here on Coffee and Cloud Native. I looked at jingles on Fiverr yesterday to see if I could find somebody to make a jingle for Tool of the Day. Wow, they're not cheap. I thought I could get like 10 of them for $5. Nope. Everybody wants to make real jingles, but I did find one guy who will make like really horrible 80s cover jingles. I don't know how many of you even listen to music from the 80s. I know I do. I know Trix does. There's probably a few others. But if I had like really, really terrible, Black Sabbath style or 80s pop song Tool of the Day jingles, would that be funny? Let me know in the chat. And Lisa will see it because I can't scroll. Wow, there's so much going on in the chat today. Justin says, I wonder if ML could come up with a jingle. I bet it probably could, but it probably wouldn't be funny. It would try to come up with something that was real and interesting. And who wants that? No, that's not why we're here. Next up, OPA. This is a blog that was originally posted on Magalix's blog, but it surfaced on the CNCF blog a couple of days ago, and so I wanted to bring it out because, remember yesterday we were talking about Team TNT being out there doing all of their stuff, and it's just the internet's a dangerous place, so you need security. So you deploy network policies, and you're like, okay, check the box network policy, but how do you know that they exist? Well, for that, you can use OPA. Start out by having it enforce that network policies actually exist. And then you test them to make sure that they work, and they show you exactly how to do all of that. So here you create the network policy, you ensure that it's actually working as expected, you set up some fake pods that have all of the correct labels, you test that you can or cannot communicate with them, and literally you can just copy paste this and tune it to your environment. And then we get into the OPA goodness. So first, OPA will enforce that the network policy exists before it allows the resource to be deployed. So if you deploy a workload that doesn't utilize a network policy, then then it's just not going to let you. Next, ensuring that the OPA policy works. Okay. But they go a step further where they say, okay, so maybe you can show that the network policy exists, but what if somebody creates a policy that actually grants all access? Well, it would pass the first test, but that's not what you want. So they go on to show you how you can create an OPA policy that shows testing that the policy actually does what you want the policy to do. This is a big, long blog with lots of examples. It's on the CNCF site. It'll be linked in the show notes. Great introduction to how to get started with OPA. Remember that this is all just one part of a larger story. Network policies, not running your containers as root, OPA enforcement, using stuff like eBPF, just falling back to zero trust and rule of least privilege. Don't give anything any more access than the bare minimum that it needs to do what it needs to do. This is going to be hard. It's going to be time consuming. It's going to be like test-driven development where you're like, ugh. And it's going to be the thing that people who sign the checks and look at the dollars want to strip out because they're like, well, why does this take so much time? Look at ways to automate it, but just force yourself to do it so that you get into the habit of just doing it, and it becomes the same as like, oh, I don't just create a deployment. I create the environment first, and then I create the deployment inside of it, and then move all of that into an automation layer. Do it with GitOps so that you can write the structure and the policy for it, and then you just don't have to worry about it. Some machine takes care of all of that for you. Trick says rule of least privilege is crucial. That is absolutely correct. We have, I see our peak was 46. Come on. We got 11 minutes. We can do this. Talos. Talos. I almost didn't have this on the show. Except I looked at it and it's kind of awesome. It runs a kernel, containerd, and a couple of other things in a squashfs file system with no persistence, and then it gives the actual disk to Kubernetes. But because the minimal operating system component is immutable, it's extremely secure. There's no shell access. It's completely API driven. There is open source and enterprise licensing. It runs in cloud, bare metal, it runs in Docker, it'll run in Firecracker VMs, and in 0.6, it now supports QEMU clusters and Kubernetes 1.19. The reason that I almost didn't include it, and Talos, if you're watching, this is for you, is because it looks like it's paid only. If you go to their pricing page up here, you're taken to this thing that gives you 3 options. Get started, choose a plan, or contact sales. I'm like, okay, I'll choose a plan for 100, Alex, at which point you're taken to a checkout page. And I'm like, well, no, I don't want this. So Talos, fix your website because that's confusing and it's probably driving people away. However, if you click get started, then you get taken to 49. You get taken to this page where you actually get the why Talos and stuff like that. So the architecture of their website sucks. Guys, fix it. What? Oh, somebody in the other room is screaming 50. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, we'll do the giveaway in just a second. Remember, say the word Beagle. Last chance. Get on the chat. Say the word Beagle. Hopefully Nightbot doesn't make me look stupid. Anyway, Talos, take it for a spin and let me know what you think. I try to deploy it locally. I actually don't have the infrastructure in the house to do it. I try to just run it inside of Docker. They've got some timeouts around their deployment script where it takes too long for me to pull images and it just times out. I would like to test this and actually see if we can bring it into a Rancher cluster and see if we can, manage it, which of course we should be able to because it's a CNCF certified Kubernetes distribution. And I like, we were talking a moment ago about one part of a story. Immutable infrastructure is a part of that story, making sure that if God forbid somebody gets inside of your house, that they can't get out of the room that they're in, but God forbid if they get out of the room that they're in, they can't get to any other room, and God forbid if they can get to, just make it. Do you know the story about the bear and the rabbit? I can't really tell you all the details of it, but a bear and a rabbit are walking through the woods because they're buddies, right? And they decide to go to the bathroom, and some stuff happens. The point of the story, actually, that's totally the wrong story. That's not even the story I want to tell you. Do you know the story about the 2 guys walking through the woods and they hear a bear? This is the real story. 2 guys are walking through the woods. They hear a bear coming. And one of the guys is like, oh, dude, we got to get out of here. And the other guy's like, hold on. And he opens up his backpack and he pulls out a pair of running shoes. And the guy's like, well, why are you putting on shoes? You can't outrun the bear. And the guy says, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you. That's how you need to think about security in your environment. It's not just that you want to protect against everything. You want to make it hard enough that they just go find an easier target. And that's something that people don't talk about. And I think that's also really important. You can never protect against everything. You can do the best you possibly can, but just make it really hard for them. These guys, unless you're a target, there's beagles outside on the road. Unless you're a specific target, if there's a state level actor after you, you're probably screwed. But if people are just scanning, they're going for the easy, low hanging fruit. Make yourself not one of those. Okay. Here we go. What are we giving away? We are giving away this. I am going to the Nightbot page. I have the word Beagle. I am saying roll it. Chris Rivers. Chris Rivers has won the giveaway. Everybody. Woohoo! Lisa, go let them out because they're barking. The dogs. we live in a rural area, and we get neighbor dogs, or there's like feral dogs that run around, and they come through our forest and they hunt the rabbits and stuff because the whole area is just crawling with rabbits. My dogs hate them. My dogs are super aggressive. They're super sweet and squishy, but they're super aggressive protectors of the property. And so whenever a beagle crosses the property that's outside of the main zone of the house, our dogs get out there and they will, if they come onto the property, they're done. Anyway, Chris Rivers, congratulations. What I need from you is, since Lisa's not in the chat right now, I need you to just type in the chat. The ways that you can reach me are in the video description. You can hit me up on Twitter, you can hit me up on LinkedIn, or you can hit me up on Instagram, which I don't even know why I have that, but whatever, it's there. If you're going to ping me, just tell me which one you're going to hit me from and tell me who you are so that I have that correlation. Oh, Lisa. Lisa, are you back at your desk?
I'm back.
Okay. Lisa will take care of you. Let's move on. It's 8:55. I've been trying to do tool of the day at 8:55, and then I always run out of time. No, then I always have time. We're going to do one more thing, and then we're going to do tool of the day. And then we're going to go long. Because why not? Congratulations, Chris. I'm really happy for you. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, we'll talk about this. There's actually a story here that I think is interesting. This article showed up a couple of days ago, and it's replicated. We had replicated on with an update to KOTS yesterday. This gets filed under the what thing that sometimes I get on the show. It says Puppet's going to use KOTS for delivery of applications. And I was like, well, that's weird. Puppet's a configuration management utility. Like, I couldn't figure out exactly what this was about. I couldn't find any documentation about it. I couldn't find any other articles except this thing on Container Journal, which always has questionable information. Not questionable information, but the details are always a little bit, well, whatever. Anyway, this was basically all I found. But I reached out to Replicated, and, well, first let me tell you what I thought. KOTS has value for deploying commercial off-the-shelf software. It has a license manager, so it'll manage licensing, it'll do validation, and I thought, why is Puppet going to use them? Later in the article, it says that businesses might first encounter Kubernetes as part of an app deployment. And I was like, okay, well, that's like Gravity. Gravity's another solution that I don't completely understand. So maybe Puppet doesn't have a Kubernetes play, and maybe they're just trying to stay relevant in the enterprise. Maybe they're going to use KOTS to install Kubernetes via Puppet. It's like, I totally don't understand. So I reached out to Replicated, and they wrote back yesterday and said, hang on a second here, I am sniffling today. Solo browser. There we go. So you don't get to see me wipe my nose with a tissue. Instead, I'll just tell you about it. Here's the actual story. Puppet has an enterprise product called Continuous Delivery for Puppet Enterprise, CD for PE. It's a Kubernetes native application, and KOTS is providing the tooling for how their team manages the licensing, the release, and the delivery of the application. So KOTS is doing what it's supposed to do for a product that Puppet sells to the enterprise. That's not in this article. That's not in anything that I could find, including information from Replicated's blog or from Puppet. The press release is even worse. So there are two lessons here. The first lesson is that without adequate information, your press release can be interpreted in any number of ways that you didn't expect. The other lesson comes out of a world where this might not have been good news. Consider what we're looking at right now. Chef just got bought by Progress, and in that announcement, they said that they've had a terrible quarter. The market for configuration management solutions that don't have a container story is totally drying up. Last night, people were floating around the investor deck from Progress about the Chef acquisition, and it has language in it that looks like they'll be realizing cost synergies within 12 months. What the hell does that mean for the people who work at Chef? Does that mean that they're going to get laid off? If you have a press release that can lead somebody to an incorrect conclusion in a market where businesses are closing and people are being laid off, well, that's bad. But if you are in one of those places, if you're somebody from Chef, if you are concerned about your position, then the lesson for you is that what you do today is not going to be relevant tomorrow. You need to plan for obsolescence. You need to plan for that by always learning and by making sure that you are always being useful. That means that the more things that you know, and the more places that you can fit, and the more disciplines that you straddle, the more essential that you will be to any organization. And that's how you, as an individual, protect yourself for your future. Whoa. How do I follow that with tool of the day? I don't know. All right, we are jumping to tool of the day, which is Rakkess. It's got a cool name, right? This is a tool that will show you a visual matrix of RBAC permissions within a cluster. Now, it requires admin privileges to run it, so you're not going to find yourself in the Team TNT weave scope space unless they've already got admin privileges on your cluster. But it can query. So it shows subjects that have access to a given resource. So for example, if I were to jump over to a terminal and run, Rakkess -n, oh, let's see, am I on the right thing? KCC, KLB, let me make sure I'm pointed at my home cluster that I'm just still building. So Rakkess, and I don't have an alias there. Okay, if you install this via crew, it actually wants to be kubectl access matrix, but I aliased that in another shell window to Rakkess, so that's a little confusing, but whatever. Let's say resource config map -n default. And I'll just give you an example of the output that it shows. So I obviously am an admin user here, but you can see that it shows what, who has access to what in each namespace. So this shows all of the user accounts, what kind it is, if it's a service account, a user, a group, or a user or a group, what the namespace is, and then what permissions they have within that namespace to the config map resource. I could do this again, and I could run it as a service account or as a particular user, but it doesn't, since it scans globally, it doesn't actually query as that user. It's a little bit different. This is great for figuring out when you're building your RBAC configuration, who can actually do the things that you think that they can or cannot do. Fantastic resource. It's called Rakkess. If we jump back to the browser, you'll see that, well, the links will be in the show notes. Very powerful. Just remember, if you install it via crew, it has a different name. Just make an alias and you'll be fine. And that's it. Another week under the bridge. If you liked what you saw today, give the video a thumbs up, and please do subscribe to the channel. I'm here every weekday. There's always something new to talk about, and sometimes I even release videos about other things. All of the links and the timestamps will be in the video description and on the new website at adrian.goins.com in about a half an hour. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll get a notification when that happens. The new website is also in the video description now, so if you're confused about whether the dot is a dot or a dot, check the video description. If there's something that you would like for me to consider for the show, hit me up and let me know. My contact details are in the video description, or you can tweet with the CNCN hashtag, and I will pick it up. If I mentioned a tool that you use, please tell me in the comments. I love hearing about people's experiences with these things, and I just love talking to you all. I will be here every weekday as long as there's something to talk about, and there is always something to talk about. Congratulations to Chris Rivers, who won today's Kubernetes Mastery course from Brett Fisher. We will do this again next Friday. I'll be back next Monday. Until then, everybody, have a great weekend. Stay safe, keep learning, and I will see you in the next show.